toss to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
What is up, gang? How good does it feel to be back? It feels great to be back. I'm happy to be back. This is awesome. The Canadiens are back on the ice after a lengthy break, and what a great game! What a fun game to come back to. Montreal Canadiens with a 5-2 victory over the Ottawa Senators. It was a game that was controlled by the Canadiens from the beginning to the end. They were the better team throughout the entirety of the game. Obviously, there were two quick goals in the first period by the Ottawa Senators. But other than that, the Canadiens were dominant. The Canadiens were the better team. And it was a really, really good performance to see them return on. For those who were wondering what we were going to see after the Four Nations face-off break, I think the answers are positive. They played well in their own end. They moved the puck. They played well in the neutral zone. And they capitalized on their opportunities. Now, to be fair, the Ottawa Senators were shorthanded. They were missing a couple of their better players. But at the same time, you play the game that's presented to you. You play the game in front of you. And tonight that meant playing an Ottawa Senators team that was missing a few of their players. But it also meant, that those opportunities were going to be there, and they took advantage of those opportunities. There were a few players who had struggled going into the break who looked really, really good tonight. I think that comes off as a positive. I'm thinking specifically of Patrik Laine and Juraj Slafkovsky. I thought they both looked really, really good. I thought they both had really, really good games, and it is a positive to see them both playing well. So welcome to the show, guys. The show is Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. As you all know by now, we are going to talk about the game tonight. We're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens, and we're going to talk about hockey. So if you're interested in that, welcome to the show. And if you're not yet subscribed to our channel, you can do so by hitting the button below the screen here. It's really, really easy to do. We're trying to grow the size of our community here, and we're trying to give you all a place where you can come to talk about the Montreal Canadiens after the game, and you can have a chat and with people who are similarly interested to you, and hopefully present a scenario where you guys can talk intelligently, objectively, and reasonably about the game without having to deal with the trolling and some of the other stuff that goes on some of the other internet platforms. So that's what we're trying to give you guys here today. If that's interesting to you, if that's something that interests you, then please hit the subscribe button, and we would love to have you. You can also hit the notification bell or the thumbs up button. We would love that as well. And again, if you're watching in a replay, all of the same applies. I know not everybody can make it to watch the show live after the game, but if you are here watching in a replay, then we would love to have you as a subscriber as well. And we certainly would appreciate a like, and if you hit the notification bell. So Billy D says, great win. Can we stop the talk of trading Slav for at least a few days now? Again, it kind of blows my mind that Montreal Canadiens fans are still talking about Slafkovsky being a bust, being that he's regressing, that he's doing this, that he's doing that. Like it's just so typical of Montreal Canadiens fans to overreact in such a short period of time over such a minor situation. Here's a kid who's 20 years old who still is learning how to play hockey at the NHL level. I get it that he's been in the league for a while now just because he was so good and they gave him an opportunity at such a young age. But there's so much going on with this kid. He's got a lot to learn. He is, far from being a finished product. And, frankly, if you're one of those people who are calling for him to be traded or calling him a bust or comparing him to others or whatever. I really honestly don't think that you're even a Montreal Canadiens fan. I think that you're more interested in satisfying your own emotional knee-jerk responses than you are about the success of the Montreal Canadiens, because you know, Uri Slafkovsky has a big part to play with this team in the future. He has a big part to play in the rebuild. And if and when this team becomes successful down the road, Uri Slafkovsky will be a big part of it. And so for those of you that are prepared to quit on him at the ripe old age of 20, again, I think that you probably don't know a ton about hockey, and you also don't really like the Montreal Canadiens, right? You cheer for hockey in order to satisfy your own emotional impulses, as opposed to really enjoying the team itself. If you enjoy the team, you are cheering for Uri Slafkovsky. You're on his side. You're cheering for him to become a better hockey player, and you're cheering for him as he develops and matures into a productive and impactful NHL hockey player. No excuses about missing players. We're missing Carey Price. Yeah, again, the Canadiens have suffered with injuries extensively for a number of years now. They've been relatively healthy this year, knock on wood. But again, you play the game that's presented in front of you. The Canadiens have gone into Ottawa a number of times in the last 3 or 4 years with a number of their players on the injured reserve list, and they've had to play, and there were no excuses made in their favor. Even tonight, right? Goulie's out. Emil Heineman, fortunately, was able to return to the lineup. But as Billy D says, we're also missing Carey Price due to injury. So, we would have the Montreal Canadiens would arguably have the best goaltender in the world in nets if it wasn't for injury. So it's a great point made by our regular viewer and good friend Billy D. If you guys are interested in talking about the game, guys, jump into the comment section. Billy D so far is the only one who's fired away with any questions or comments. But everybody is certainly welcome to do so. We have some prepared material as far as the scoreboard and the A team are concerned. We have our the scoreboard to go through, which goes through some of the statistical analysis of the game. But again, this show is intended for you guys to be interactive and to provide your own feedback and to ask your questions and provide your comments. So if you're here and you're watching, I see there's 7 people currently watching. We would certainly welcome and love for you to be part of the conversation and get the ball rolling here. Billy D, like I said, is so far the only one who really has had anything to say as of yet. And what's going on there? So if you're no, you're good, Billy. I love it. I wish more people would be commenting. You're the only one who's engaged in the comment section as of right now. We would love for people to come over from TikTok and join us over here on YouTube. Zachary, welcome. Zachary Candido, thank you. Zach is here. Good to see you, Zach. Are you? Did you enjoy the games tonight? Which games did you watch? If you're here, guys, feel free to fire away with your questions. My takeaway from the game tonight, guys, was that the Canadiens, it looks like they benefited from the time off. It looks like they came out rested. They came out with an attitude of we're going to take the game to the Ottawa Senators. We're not going to sit back and react to them. We're going to play our game and force them to react to us. And they certainly did that, right? They came out and they played a strong physical game right off the bat. They were hitting, forechecking, winning battles along the boards. It was an impressive performance by the Canadiens. They did not sit back and wait for Ottawa to carry the game. They took the initiative to play their style of game. Uri Slafkovsky is perhaps the best exemplification of that. his game was really, really strong. He was physical. He was big. Of course, much was made of his comments earlier this week that he thought he needed to play more of a Brady Tkachuk style game in order to be successful, to be productive, to be impactful in the NHL. And I'm certain that that's something that would have come from either Marty St. Louis or somebody else on the coaching staff. Somebody would have planted that idea in his head. And tonight he definitely did that, right? He definitely used his big body. He definitely, was physical. He took advantage of the opportunity that was presented to him. He scored a goal, and he stood up for himself when I think it was Ridley Gregg took a run at him, right? And he stood up for himself, and, he's not the best fighter in the world, and obviously that part of his game needs a little bit of work, but he certainly showed that he wasn't afraid to stand up for himself. So how did the Leafs do tonight, Zach? How was the Leafs game? I believe they won. I didn't see any of the details of that. It certainly wouldn't be hard for me to look it up. What do we have from the Leafs tonight? We have a 6-3 Leafs win over the Hurricanes. Goals by Alex Steeves, Pontus Holmberg, David Kampf, John Tavares, Austin Matthews, and Pontus Holmberg with his second goal of the game into an empty net. 2 empty net goals, Matthews and Holmberg both into the empty net. So I think we're seeing that the Leafs won tonight with a lot of support from their secondary contributors, right? Alex Steeves wouldn't be a guy you would count on to score a ton of goals. Neither would Pontus Holmberg or David Kempf, and those guys contributed 5 of the 6 goals for Toronto this evening. I see one of the goals is listed as an own goal. The second goal, the first goal by Pontus Holmberg. Maybe you can tell us what happened there, Zach. But yeah. Yeah, it was a good win for the Leafs. That's a good team. Yeah, that's a good team on the other side, Carolina. What else do we have on the scoreboard here tonight? We have the Jets and Blues are in overtime, 3-3 right now. Utah and LA are 2-2 in the second period. The Canucks and Golden Knights just got underway, and they're still 0-0. The Wild beat the Red Wings in overtime. The Flyers beat the Oilers 6-3. Michkov certainly looks like he benefited from the break, the Four Nations break. He scored a goal, his 17th of the year. He added an assist. Make that 2 assists. So a goal and 2 assists for Michkov today. So a 3-point day for Michkov. The Capitals put a beating on the Penguins, 8-3. Did Crosby play in that game? Let's check it out. 8-3 for the Capitals. Sidney Crosby did play and scored a goal. He scored one of the Penguins' 3 goals. However, the Capitals put a pounding on them, 8-3. The Capitals being, of course, one of the few teams in the NHL who had no players, right? You're the number 1 team in the NHL, and they had no players participating for any of the 4 teams at the Four Nations face-off. The Sabres with an 8-2 win over the Rangers. The Kraken 2-1 over the Panthers. The Stars 4-2 over the Devils. The Preds beat the Avalanche 2-1. The Bruins fell 3-2 in overtime to the Ducks. The Leafs 6-3, we just talked about, over the Hurricanes. The Canadiens 5-2 over the Senators. That's the game we're here to talk about. And 5-1 for the Blue Jackets over the Blackhawks. So that's the out-of-town scoreboard, guys. That's what we saw in the NHL today and tonight. The Leafs are a different team this year in many ways. Will be interesting to see in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, they're different in some ways. I don't know how different they are, to be honest with you, Billy. I mean, again, I'm not here to crap on the Leafs, and that's kind of, something that, Canadiens fans are known to do. But I I don't know. I just, we've heard that about the Leafs before, right? Oh, this is a new team, but again, the Leafs will not take the next step in their development until they are able to do it in a playoff setting, and we'll have to wait a couple months to see whether that actually happens. Marner had a really good final. Billy D, I thought the rest of his tournament was pretty average. Marner played really, he had a really good, final game. I thought that was his best game of the tournament. But the first 3 games were pretty mediocre. Even the first game when he scored the overtime winner. Prior to that, he wasn't very impactful for Team Canada. But, he stepped up when it counted, like you say, with the 2 points in the final game. Including the play on the game-winning goal in overtime in the final. So I think overall it probably was a positive tournament for Mitch Marner. It was not so much so for Austin Matthews. Bonjour, Jacob. If you're over on TikTok, guys, come on and join us over on YouTube. I'm not sure what's going on here tonight, guys. We have a very, very low turnout. I thought on a Saturday night, with the Canadiens coming back off the Four Nations break, I thought we would have a few more people than this, to be quite honest with you. It is what it is. I guess we might as well just go straight to our scoreboard then, guys. If maybe tonight's going to be a short show. Maybe we're not going to get a ton of conversation here tonight. So there's your scoreboard, gang. As we know, the scoring was opened at 2:28 of the first period by Brendan Gallagher. Unassisted goal, big turnover in the offensive zone. Gallagher gets the puck in front of the net, and he is able to beat Linus Ullmark. Then Caulfield scores a goal on a nice play by Jack-Eye. Again, Caulfield is left with a bit of an empty net to score on. And then, this was probably the negative aspect of the game. The Canadiens give up 2 goals in about 2 minutes, sort of in the latter half of the first period from Sanderson and Stützle, 2 goals. And it looks like the Canadiens might be in a little bit of trouble. The score's tied at that point. And, again, some Canadiens fans are maybe thinking, oh, geez, here we go again. But again, Patrick Laine scores a power play goal late in the period on a really nice play by Lane Hutson. Lane Hutson gets the puck at the blue line. He skates towards the net. He attracts some defenders, and he basically fools the goaltender, and he dishes off a nice pass to Patrick Laine, who takes a shot from his normal spot on the left circle dot, and he doesn't quite get all of it, but because of the feint from Hutson, the puck does beat Linus Ullmark, and that's Laine's 13th goal of the year, and the Canadiens regain the lead, and they're up 3-2 after 1 period. The second period is all Montreal. Josh Anderson scores a goal. Juraj Slafkovsky scores a goal, and they make it 5-2. And that's pretty much all she wrote. The third period was there's no scoring in the third period. Shots on goal were 27-25 in favor of Ottawa. The Corsi favored Ottawa as well, 63-57. The Fenwick was 51-38 in favor of Ottawa, and the high danger scoring chances were 10-7 for Ottawa, and the expected goals were 2.75 to 2.32. So again, I think it is a good example, a good demonstration of why the advanced stats don't always tell the story of a game. Again, this was a game that was largely dominated by the Montreal Canadiens. Again, the statistics don't seem to indicate that for whatever reason, but this was a game that, other than for a brief period of about 2 minutes in the first period, it was never really in doubt for Montreal. Montreal was the better team. They were taking the game to Ottawa. They were controlling the puck. They were controlling the scoring opportunities, and they were the better team from beginning to end. Claude Richard, bienvenue, Claude. Yes, it was an awesome game. It was fun to watch. A great Saturday night game, for the Montreal Canadiens. It was a nice return back from the Four Nations face-off break, and Montreal certainly had one of their better games in a while, and they broke that. They're not on a losing streak per se, but they've certainly been on a bit of a losing run, and they certainly looked quite good tonight. Again, I'm not sure why the statistics look the way they do. You'll have to find somebody a lot smarter than me in order to explain why those numbers come out the way they do. Because frankly, I thought the Canadiens were by far the better team from beginning to end tonight. They were, there weren't very many categories in tonight's game where, you would have said that Ottawa was the better team. So I don't know if you guys agree with that. Maybe you can let me know in the comments whether you think I'm crazy for saying that or whether you agree with me. But I just didn't see. I didn't see a game that was dominated by Ottawa or even controlled by Ottawa the way the advanced statistics would seem to tell us they are. But it is what it is. Again, all that really matters is the final score. We saw a couple games prior to the break where Montreal probably was the better team, but they didn't win. That was frustrating, I suppose. But tonight was the other way around. I thought the Canadiens were the better team, and they certainly deserved the result that they got. So if we're not going to have a lot of chat in the comments, guys, we might as well have a quick look at the Laval Rocket game tonight. Laval goes down 3-2 to the Syracuse Crunch. Unfortunately, Florian Jacquet with another goal. He's had a couple of nice solid games in a row. Laurent Dauphin scores the other. Jacquet, it was his 14th goal, assisted by Kidney and Bocage. And Dauphin, it was his 16th goal, assisted by Farrell and Alexandre Barré-Boulet. Laval's been a bit up and down for the last couple weeks. They are still one of the top teams in the American Hockey League, and they look to make a pretty significant run towards the playoffs. Tonight they were outshot 43-18. So again, probably a pretty good game in nets for Connor Hughes, who played in goal for Laval tonight. He saved 40 of 43 shots. Meanwhile, Brandon Halverson for the Syracuse Crunch only had to make 16 saves. So it was a game that appears to have been dominated. I didn't watch it, so I can't really say for sure, but it appears to have been dominated by the Syracuse Crunch. David Reinbacher was kept out of the game by the Rocket tonight, and again, as I understand it, that was a precautionary measure. They didn't want to throw him into back-to-back games or games on back-to-back nights, given that he's just returning from his injury. Tony B., what's going on? Welcome. Did you get the feeling that certain players watched the Four Nations tournament and got motivated by it? Yeah, absolutely, Tony B. I think that's probably a great that's a great comment. That's a great observation. I think if you listened to the interviews that the Canadiens gave after practice today, I think you would have gotten that same feeling that there were certain players that watched that tournament and certainly watched it with an eye to seeing how they could improve their games. Like, of course, we know that Juraj Slafkovsky commented earlier in the week that he thought that his game had to look more like Brady Tkachuk's in order for him to be successful in the NHL. And while I don't know that those two guys are identical, I think that Juraj Slafkovsky probably can't be exactly like Brady Tkachuk. I think there are aspects of Brady Tkachuk's game that would certainly benefit him, and he definitely brought that tonight. Jared, what's up? Jason Babcock, what's up? Welcome on TikTok, guys. If you're over on TikTok, come and join us on YouTube. If you want to get into the conversation, you need to come over to YouTube and get into the comment section. But yeah, no, I agree with that, Tony B. That's a great observation. 100%. I missed the first, but seemed like the Habs carried the play in the second and the third. Yeah, for the first 10 minutes of the game, the Canadiens were dominant, Billy D. It looked like they might run away with the game. It was 2-0 quite early. Then Ottawa scored a goal on a power play, and then they got another goal quickly afterwards. But yeah, Montreal, with the exception of a brief period, sort of in that second part of the first period, were the better team and definitely carried the play. They definitely carried the play. I think, it's funny, you talk about Tony B, you talk about players watching the Four Nations face-off and got motivated by it. I thought that Patrick Laine tonight was very motivated by the Four Nations face-off. Of course, he wasn't watching it. He was in the middle of it and playing, and I thought that he looked a lot better tonight. He looked a lot better, a lot more dangerous offensively. He was playing better defensively. He was getting back. You could see that there was definitely, part of his mind was being, there were a few situations where you could clearly see that he was thinking about his defensive aspects of his game, and I thought he had a strong game as well. Not just because he scored a goal, but overall I thought he had a pretty solid game. I don't know if you agree with me on that or not, but yeah. So Laval, we got Laval with a 3-2 loss. We can also check out some NCAA hockey tonight, guys. There were a few Montreal Canadiens prospects on the ice tonight for their various teams in the NCAA. We had, of course, first of all, we will come to, let's see, who's going to come up first. Providence versus UMass Lowell. So we'll have a look there to see how our good friend Logan Sawyer did. Logan Sawyer finished the game tonight with a goal. Where is he here? Logan Sawyer, a goal. Yeah, he finished with 1 goal and 4 shots on goal. Logan Sawyer for the Providence. What are they called? The Providence Pilgrims or something? I don't know what they're called. Anyways, yeah, Logan Sawyer with a goal for Providence tonight. Boston College wins 4-1 against UVM, the Vermont Catamounts. I believe that I'll confirm this to make sure. Yeah, Jacob Fowler was in nets. He saved 31 of 32 shots. And, yeah, another good performance by Jacob Fowler. He now sits as one of the best goaltenders so far this season in the NCAA. And what else do we have? I don't know if any. Yeah, Sam Harris played for Denver tonight. Sam Harris finishes with no points, 2 shots on goal for the Denver Pioneers. And I believe that's going to be it for the Montreal Canadiens prospects playing in the NCAA tonight. So Uri Slavkovsky. Ivan Demidov played this morning for SKA against the Kunlun Red Star. He got put on the third line with 2 new line mates who are a little bit offensively challenged. I think one guy has a total of 3 points on the season. The other guy has, I think, 13 or 14. And not a really sensical move, not a move that makes a lot of sense. However, Demidov was able to register an assist, and the SKA hockey team lost to the Kunlun Red Star, one of the worst teams in the KHL. And again, I think it had a lot to do with the poor coaching of Roman Rottenberg. He doesn't really seem to know what he's doing. But Demidov did manage to score a point despite being put on the third line, despite having his ice time limited significantly, and despite having to play with 2 guys who don't really have a ton of offensive talent. So it appears that Demidov turned down another effort by the SKA team to re-sign him, and the punishment for doing so appears to have been that he got slid down the lineup and had his line mates changed. So we're talking about Slavkovsky, Claude, and Billy D. Yeah, he absolutely had a great game. I think this might have been Slavkovsky's best game of the year. He came up 1 assist short of a Gordie Howe hat trick, but he was all over the ice. I think he dominated as far as like his individual stats tonight. He led the team in. Let's just see this for a second here. He led the team in. So Caulfield led the team in scoring chances 4, but Slavkovsky had the most hits on the team with 8. Pardon me. Slavkovsky had 8 hits tonight. The next closest guy on the team had only 4. That was Jake Evans. He had 5 shots on goal tonight. The next closest guy on the team had 3. That was Brendan Gallagher. He had the highest number of individual expected goals at 0.53. The next closest was 0.41. What's up, Lemon Party? Come and join us on YouTube, Lemon Party. We're having a show on YouTube. If you want to come and join the conversation, we'd love to have you. Come on over. So yeah, you're right. Slavkovsky, I think this would have been his one of his better games of the year. Hopefully, this is something that he can carry into future games, and that he's figured something out. I know this. A lot is being made of these comments he made about playing a more physical Brady Tkachuk style game, and hopefully that's something that he can keep up as the season moves on. You'll all remember that this was right around the time last year where his game took a step forward. Right, his first half versus his second half last year was there was a big difference between the two. We're very quiet tonight, guys. I'm not quite sure why. If you're here watching, guys, please give us a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please do so. But more than anything, I would love for you to get into the conversation and have a chat and fire some questions at us so that we can keep the conversation going for a little while here. I could have sworn Jack Guy had at least 5 hits. Sometimes I don't understand what counts as a hit. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with you, Jason, and I think the NHL does a poor job of tracking hits. It's not very good at it, but I can tell you exactly how many hits Jack Guy had according to the stats. They have him listed here at 3 hits. So again, you're right. I'm not sure what counts as a hit in the NHL these days. I thought Jack Guy had a great game as well. I thought he was, he stayed true to his strengths. He kept it simple. Which is always, a good recipe for him for success. And he had a good game, right? He had a good game. Again, he had a really good game. I mean, Jack Guy's advanced numbers tonight were very impressive. He was expected goals for percentage for Jack Guy. Best on the team. Oh, sorry, that's 5-on-5. In all situations, Arbor Jack Guy was expected goals percentage of 71.68. Second best on the team behind Slavkovsky. 5-4 scoring chances. 2-1 high danger chances. 5-5 shots. 10-7 Fenwick. 11-11 Corsi. He had a really good game. I thought Jack Guy played quite well tonight. I thought a lot of players played well tonight, to be honest with you. I thought a lot of players played well tonight. My big takeaway from watching the tournament was how clinical the players were at lifting the puck over the goalkeeper's shoulders. Has anyone noticed that? Yeah, the players are getting really good at picking their spots. Their ability to pick spots on the goaltenders is improving. I think we're getting to a point now in the NHL where goaltending is more about covering as much net as you can and being in the right place than it is about actually making saves. I think the players are getting more accurate and more quick with their shots. The stick technology is obviously helping with that. And but yeah, no, you're right. The players, whether it's not just about over the shoulder, it's anywhere. It's they're able to pick spots better than probably ever in the history of hockey, where they can if you leave them a gap of 2 or 3 inches, they can find it more. I wouldn't say more often than not, but a lot of times they can find that gap. I loved Heineman's game as well, Billy D. I thought for a guy coming back from what was he out for almost a month with what we understand is a wrist or an arm injury of some kind, a broken arm. I thought he played really, really well. He was physical. He didn't back down from any of the physical play. I don't think he didn't really contribute on the scoreboard necessarily, but he definitely was involved. He definitely was, out there and making himself known. And he makes a huge difference, right? When he's providing that kind of contribution from the fourth line role, it makes a huge difference for the rest of the team. So tonight he had, how many minutes did he play? He probably had about 12 minutes, I'm going to say. Yeah, 12 minutes and 16 seconds on 18 shifts. He had 4 hits. Yeah. I mean, I love Heineman. I mean, I actually, Gary Galley on the broadcast tonight was talking about how Heineman can move up and down the lineup and blah blah. Yeah, I guess in an emergency he probably can, but the real strength of Heineman's game is that he's adapted his skill set to being a solid bottom six performer, right? Like he's not trying to be something that he's not anymore, or he's not. It's not so much that he's not trying to be something that he's not, but he's realized what he needs to be in order to be an everyday player in the NHL, right? He's not going to be an everyday player in the NHL if he tries to be a goal scorer. Like at 14, 15, 16 goals a year, he's not going to be a top 6 player in the league. And I think he's realized that, and he needs to bring different aspects to his game. He needs to, and he's done this. He's improved his defensive game. He's taken on a more physical role. He's doing a lot of things on the ice that he didn't do before. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think he had it in him. When they kept him at the beginning of this year, I thought it was a mistake. Right? I thought it was a mistake to keep him on the team, out of training camp over Joshua Roy. I thought that Joshua Roy was the better option. I thought they should have kept him. I thought he would be a more impactful player for the Montreal Canadiens, even with the disappointing preseason that he had. And I'm willing to admit that I was wrong. Heineman has definitely undertaken a new role. He's embraced that role, and he's done everything he can to become good at that role. And he's done it spectacularly. Yeah, there is definitely a focus on the size of goalies these days. It's very rare to see goaltenders that are not, sort of 6'2" or bigger. And it is literally unheard of for a goalie to be drafted in the NHL if they're not 6 feet, right? We see this with Mathis Russo, Halifax Mooseheads goalie, best goalie in the Quebec League for at least 2 seasons, and played for the World Junior team, played very well for the World Junior team, and couldn't even get drafted because he's 5'11". So in the NHL right now, the 2 goalies who stand out as goalies who are under 6 feet are UC Saros and who's the other guy? UC Saros and there's another guy who's under 6 feet, In fact, I think he played in the Four Nations. Who was it? But it's very noticeable nowadays when you watch UC Saros play goal. It's very noticeable that he's not that size, right? Like you can tell. Oh, Dustin Wolf is the other guy who's not that not over 6 feet in the NHL. But you notice these guys when they're in the net. You're like, oh wow, that guy looks small now, right? Like a goalie who's 6'1", you're like, oh, that guy's not that big. So goalies now are like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and yeah, again, like I said, I think goalies are now trending towards being more. It's more about covering the net than it is about making saves, right? Like back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, when you played goal, you were making saves. Like you were, your hand-eye coordination and your reaction and your reflexes were the key factor in determining whether you were going to be a good goaltender or not. Now it's more about positioning and getting in the right spot and putting your body in the best position to cover as much of the net as you possibly can based on where the shot is coming from. And I guess this whole conversation kind of started out of the fact that the players now are shooting the puck harder and faster than they ever have before, and their accuracy is better than it ever was before, right? They're, whether it's the stick technology or whether it's the players themselves, they're able to pick those corners or pick those spots better than they have at any other time in hockey history. And so the goaltenders now, it's come to the point where it's no longer about, can I react to what this guy is doing, shooting at me, as much as it is about, can I put myself in the best place to get hit with the puck. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, guys, we're running out of gas here, guys. There's not a lot of gas here coming from the comments. Billy D's done his part, obviously, and Tony B and Claude and Jason Teal. But other than that, and Zach as well. But it's pretty quiet, guys. I don't know what to say. How long would you go with Monty during this stretch? What do you mean by that, Tony B? Our speakers? Did our speakers die? Uh-oh. Did our speakers die? Can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys hear me all right? I think our speakers died. So the sound quality might go down here a little bit, guys, but that's okay. As long as you can hear me. So, again, I don't know what you mean by how long would I go with Monty down this stretch. I mean, Samuel Montembeault is the number one goalie, and he'll remain so. I don't see that changing. As far as him, like, what do you mean by him going with him down the stretch? I don't think that will change. I think that will remain the same. I don't think that Jakub Dobeš has done enough to change that. I don't think that Montembeault has done enough to change that or done enough negatively to change that. He's the number one guy. I thought he had a fantastic game tonight. As many starts as possible? No, I don't think anybody deserves that. I think you're probably looking at him playing 3 out of 4. I think you're looking at him playing 3 out of 4 games. I think that would be reasonable to expect out of him. If Dobeš starts to falter, then maybe that becomes a problem, and you have to, address that. But again, I don't see that really being the case. I think they're going to ride out the rest of the season with those two guys. It's not really something that's at the top of my mind as far as a concern. I'm not concerned about Dobesh. I'm not concerned about I'm certainly not concerned about Montembeault. Tonight, I thought Montembeault was great. And again, I've talked about this before. To me, I'm not that worried that Montembeault's save percentage is down around 900, whereas some of the better goalies in the league are in the 920s. For me, what you're looking for from a really good goaltender is one who does enough to keep you in the game and one who makes the big saves when they're necessary, right? Like Jordan Binnington the other night for Team Canada, right? Not the best game in the world, not the best tournament in the world, but he made the saves that counted when they were most needed. And, to me, that's something that Montembeault has done largely throughout the season, right? He's not been a guy who has a spectacular save percentage. He's not been a guy who's stolen games for the Canadiens. He's not been a guy who has stood on his head and, looked, crazy, incredible at times. But he tends to make the right save at the right time, which is what he did tonight. Jason asks about Dobesh and whether Dobesh will get more starts. Again, I don't see the need for that. I mean, unless you're trying to get him some experience. But again, I do appreciate that as a young goalie, it's not ideal for Dobesh to only be playing once every 4 or 5 games. So maybe in that sense, he might get a little bit more time on the ice. But I don't think that the situation that the Canadiens are in right now and the way they're handling their goaltending is necessarily an untenable one. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but for me, if Dobesh is playing 1 out of every 4 games, then I think you're okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you not agree with that? Like, I'm happy with that if that's what's happening, to be honest with you. So let's get to the A team here, guys. Let's do this. We're not going to get the racket to go with it. So tonight, guys, I have listed on my A team, I have Juraj Slafkovsky. That was an easy choice for me. Arbor Jacki, Josh Anderson, and Cole Caulfield. You guys can let me know whether you agree with my selections, whether you think I'm crazy, whether there's... Here we go.
И затем передача партнера на короткого. По-моему, отдавал Воробьев. Да, так и...
I'm sorry, guys. This is a...
Выкатывался Котляревский, но помешать толком не удалось.
For whatever reason, the video of a Demidov goal playing in the background, the audio of a Demidov goal is playing in the background. It's going to end. There it is. It ended. I got to fix that. I don't know why that does that. Oh, it's a long night, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah, Slafkovsky, Jacki, Anderson, Caulfield. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there anybody you think that I missed? I think that for me, there's a couple guys that you could add to that list. I thought that David Savard had a good game. I thought that Jaden Struble had a really good game. I also think that Gallagher could have been there. I thought he had a good game. And that's Nick Suzuki, of course. I think, again, it's difficult when you put, it's difficult to put all 3 guys from one line on the the 4 stars of the game or the A team. But I think Suzuki would have been certainly a deserving member of the A team tonight. But those are the guys I went with. I think Slafkovsky is a bit of a no-brainer. Again, Jacki I'm always impressed with Jacki. I think Jacki has been one of the best stories of the rebuild for the Montreal Canadiens, as far as a guy whose development and improvement has been a revelation, right? A guy who came out of nowhere, undrafted into the Ontario Hockey League, undrafted into the NHL, made the Montreal Canadiens as a 20-year-old, and hasn't looked back, and just continues to improve and get better game after game after game after game. right? He's a guy whose trajectory, we always talk about how, the development of prospects in the NHL is not linear. Arbor Jackie's prospect development has been very linear, right? It's been largely linear because he's just improved, after, all the time he's getting better, right? From where he was as an 18 or 19-year-old, as a guy who could barely make it in junior hockey, to a guy now who is a very, very serviceable third pairing defenseman in the NHL. A guy who could play on the third pairing of any team in the entire NHL, right? It is no longer a situation of a guy who's only on the team because the Canadiens are rebuilding and they're not very strong, right? That's, initially when he made the team, it was because, Montreal didn't have a lot of guys to pick from. But now he's a guy who deserves to be there. And frankly, I don't think that there's a single team in the NHL from top to bottom that wouldn't do fine to have Arbor Jacki on their defensive core. Not one team. You can call me crazy for saying that, but there's not a team in the NHL that Arbor Jacki wouldn't deserve to make. I'm not a John Cooper fan, but I was really impressed with how he interacted with Binnington after the winning game. Yeah, I'm not a big John Cooper fan either, but I thought he did well, not just, with Binnington. I thought he did well with that entire team. I think there's aspects of Cooper's game which are impressive, and that from that perspective, I am a John Cooper fan. Overall, I'm not a big John Cooper fan. I don't know. There's something about him that just doesn't really rub me the right way. But I thought he did a really good job with that team. I think he's a guy who does really well with good players. I think he's very good at managing personalities. He's very good at managing egos, and I think in that sense he's perfect for that job. The job of coaching Team Canada. However, I prefer sort of the Marty St. Louis type. I prefer the teacher, the guy, the developer, the guy who brings players from in their early stages of their development and brings them to again, just a different style. Like I don't know that John Cooper would be a guy that I would hire to coach a young hockey team that is developing and working its way to being a contending team. Is he a guy you'd bring in to coach a team that's on the verge of winning the Stanley Cup? Yeah, absolutely. Right. So that's why I think he's done well in Tampa Bay. It's why, he would do well on a team like Colorado. I think he'd do well on a team like, Edmonton, teams that are established and don't necessarily need, the focus isn't necessarily on development. It's more so on winning and getting over the top. So Jacki was so pumped when Slav dropped the gloves. He was very excited on the bench. One of the great things about that fight, did you notice that Lane Hudson was ready to get in there? Right? When Slavkovsky got hit, the first guy ready to go was Lane Hudson. Lane Hudson was ready to jump in there and stand up for his teammate, but Slavkovsky was able to jump up immediately and defend himself. He didn't need any of his teammates to do that for him. But Lane Hudson was ready to do it. Listen, guys, if you're watching the show, if you're enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up. I see there's 14 people watching. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so. The subscribe button is just down below the screen here. We've only got 3 thumbs up so far tonight. I don't know, maybe it's not a great show tonight. I thought there would be a little bit more interaction tonight, but it is what it is. I appreciate you, Billy D, Claude, Jason, Tony B, Zachary was here earlier. I appreciate all of your contributions, guys. Unfortunately, it's been a bit of a slow night. I don't know what to do about that. Maybe people aren't enjoying the show anymore. Maybe I got to figure out a way to make it a little bit more entertaining for you guys. Josh Anderson, I thought, had a good game tonight as well. Again, I've been really impressed with Josh Anderson's skating lately. I've been impressed with the way that he's embraced his new role on this team. He's no longer expected to do, a lot of the things that were expected, or he thought he was expected to do before. And because of that, because he's just playing, and playing a simple game and playing, playing within his abilities, he's getting more opportunities. And again, he scored another goal tonight, and he's looked good. He's looked good. He's physical, he's big, he's strong. We talk about the Canadiens being tougher and whatever, and I think he's a big part of that, right? Obviously, Jack Guy is a big part of that, but he is too. Like Josh Anderson can hold his own with just about anyone in the NHL if he needs to. Demidov needs to hurry up and get to the Canadiens. His utilization in Russia has been horrible, and he's still producing. Well, I don't think he has any control over that, Jason, unfortunately. But I think he'll get to Montreal as soon as he possibly can. His contract expires, I believe, in April or May, and then I think you'll see him come over to Montreal, and he'll certainly be with the team when they go to camp in, I guess it will be September, maybe? I don't know about before that. I don't know whether he'll go to the rookie camp or not, but again, he can't really, there's not much he can do. He's under contract with SKA, and there's only so much he can do until that contract expires. So, but it's coming. It's coming, and you're right. He is producing despite a lack of ice time. He has actually gotten a pretty fair amount of ice time over the last, let's say, month or so. Again, I'm not sure what happened for today's game. He was slid down to the third pairing or the third line combo with, again, a bunch of guys who really don't have a lot of offensive talent, and he was held to just an assist. But I don't know. Rottenberg makes crazy decisions. Like, I don't know if I don't imagine that any of you or many of you watched the game today, but if you watched the game, so the SKA team they were down 5-2, and they got a power play with like 9 minutes left in the game. So Rottenberg made the decision to pull the goalie, which is not a bad deal. I don't have a problem with that. He pulled the goalie with 9 minutes left. They had a power play. They had a 6-on-4 power play. They scored a goal. They made it 5-3. Then they had another power play. He did the same thing. He went 6-on-4. He pulled the goalie, and they scored another goal and made it 5-4. Great, 5-4. There's still 6 minutes left in the game, but they're no longer on the power play, and he kept the goalie out, and they scored an empty net goal to make it 6-4. So he had the goalie out 5-4. So now you're within a goal. Why keep your goalie out? You're only within a goal. There's still 6-7 minutes left in the game. You've got momentum. Why not put your best players out there and see if they can, score the tying goal? But he left the net empty, even strength, and Kunlun scored a goal to make it 6-4. And then he puts the goalie back in the net. So now it's 6-4. You had the goalie out at 5-4, but now it's 6-4, and you've got the goalie back in. He just makes these decisions that just make no sense whatsoever. Benoit, it's hard now to get back to listen to normal games. The final between Canada and U.S. was crazy, even the first game between them with those three fights. Yeah, it's different hockey. It's obviously different hockey. I mean, the speed and the talent that's on the ice for a tournament like the Four Nations, is never going to match up with a regular season NHL game. But again, I think the emotion and the intensity can be there in an NHL game. And I thought tonight that I was impressed with the level of emotion and intensity that the Canadiens brought to the game. But you're right. It is. Again, you're watching those. I thought that the three fights in the game last Saturday night between Canada and the U.S. were kind of useless. I'm definitely in the minority as far as that's concerned. But it is what it is. My sources are telling me that the Habs are close to a major trade involving Seth Jones. Okay, well, you should tell your sources that they have no idea what they're talking about and that they are sadly misinformed. Because that's not going to happen, Cheese Wizard. Jason Teal, they keep moving him all around the lineup. Power play time, no power play time. If they are down, they play him a ton, expecting him to be a god, and blame him when he doesn't produce in those situations. Yeah. Again, I think his usage has been better over the last month or so. But yeah, certainly today was a bit of a weird anomaly. It's changed. And obviously prior to that, you know, I would agree with your assessment that I guess I'm sort of torn between whether it's a situation where they're trying to pressure him into signing a contract to stay in Russia, or whether it's Roman Rottenberg just being completely inept and not knowing what he's doing and being a bad coach, or it's a you know, a young you know, it's the way they treat young players, that, you know, you're young and you need, you know, they're kind of old school in that sense, that they were kind of giving him the, you know, you're just a kid and you need experience before you can, you know, really, you know, get that kind of ice time, because frankly, it's in SKA's best interest to give Demidov every opportunity because he's their best offensive player, right? You know, and they should be looking for opportunities to put him in scenarios or situations where he can succeed and score goals and you know, produce offense, because, you know, obviously that's, you know, that's his strength and that's what he's the best at. And so the idea of them not giving him a ton of ice time, or they're putting him out there with guys who don't necessarily give him the best opportunity to produce offensively, I'm not sure what's behind that, because it's not a decision that's being made based on common sense, what's best for the team, if that makes sense. There's something else going on there. And again, it could just be Rottenberg being completely a bad coach who doesn't know what he's doing, or it could be, you know, something a little bit more deep than that. You know, as far as, you know, they're trying to pressure him into signing a contract, or they're trying to, you know, because realistically, I mean, they don't really have, if he's not going to stick around, if he's leaving at the end of the year to go to Montreal, they don't really have much of an interest in developing him as a player. You know, I mean, you could argue that, you know, inherently you should always want to improve or to develop young players, whether they're going to stick with your team or not, but they don't seem to have that. And I mean, in a way, you can't really blame them, right? If he's not going to stick around past this year, why would you invest any of your efforts or your, you know, anything into him being back? I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not sure what's going on there. They are this time, Cheese Wizard. Your sources are wrong here. The Canadiens are not looking at making a move for Seth Jones. You know, if they were, and again, they're not. I can't imagine that they are. The only reason I can imagine them even thinking for half a second about taking on Seth Jones would be a scenario where they get some sort of compensation for taking on his contract. But as I understand it, I don't think that the Canadiens have any retention spots left right now to do that. So again, I don't think that makes sense. They're not making a move for Seth Jones because they believe that Seth Jones is a guy who can really do anything positive for the team. What is Seth Jones? Like, Seth Jones' contract is, what is he, like $9.5 million? He doesn't really fit culturally into the team with his attitude and personality. He is a right shot defenseman, I suppose. But he's got a big contract. So again, I think that if he did come, I think you would see the Canadiens get some sort of compensation for taking him on. But again, I don't believe that that's a scenario that's being considered in any serious way. If the Habs can play .500 for the next 26 games, it's still 38 wins compared to 30 last year. They're getting better. Yes, absolutely, Benoit. everything's a step forward, right? Individually and as a team, I think this team continues to step forward. Everyone seems to be focused on the playoffs, and that has something to do with the fact that they've had a run there sort of through the latter part of December and January, that they got close to making to being in a playoff spot. But again, making the playoffs isn't the measure of of this team's success for this year. I think it's more about whether they improve, as you say, and better win-loss total, lower goals against, higher goals for, things like that, things that demonstrate an advancement. Individual players improving from year to year. Caulfield, we're seeing, is a better player this year than he was last year. Those types of things. Gooley, Hudson, adding those guys. As the rebuild moves on, you look to see individuals improve, and you look to see the team improve as a whole as well. But they should want to win, and playing Demidov does that. Again, there's a lot more going on there. I agree with you. Every team should want to win to a certain degree. Obviously, there's other aspects at play. I mean, we're seeing that very clearly with the Canadiens, that winning in a rebuild is not necessarily always the ultimate consideration. But again, I don't know what's going on in SCA. It's hard enough to keep track of what's going on in Montreal, let alone what's going on the other side of the world. So I don't know why Rottenberg is doing what he's doing. Again, some people are speculating that it has to do with the fact that, Demidov is not, responding the way they want to their contract offers, and that they would like him to stay with the team in the future. And he is just looking to run out his contract and to move on to the NHL. So there's all kinds of different considerations at play. Seth Jones has reported wanting to go to a winning team if moved. He's not going from Chicago to Montreal. Well, I don't know that Seth Jones is really in any real position to pick and choose. Obviously, again, I don't know whether he has a no trade clause or not. So as far as the trade is concerned, assuming he doesn't have a no trade clause, which he may or may not, I don't really know. He'll go wherever they move him. The question will be whether he's going to re-sign with that team that he gets moved to. Again, I don't envision a scenario where Montreal would take him, right? He doesn't fit with the attitude and cultural personality, whatever you want to call it, that the Canadiens have, made it very clear that they're looking for. He's not a kind of guy that fits on this team, right? He doesn't have the attitude and the personality of what the Montreal Canadiens have clearly demonstrated they're looking for. He's got a huge contract. He's not young anymore. He's 30. He'll be 31. He's 30 years old. There's all kinds of reasons why Montreal would not be interested in Seth Jones. And again, if they did make any type of move to bring Seth Jones in, it would only be on the basis that they were getting repaid or receiving some sort of compensation for taking on some or all of his contract. And again, I don't see that. Not at $9.5 million. It would hamstring the team through the period within which their window is open to, basically it would hamstring the team with a $9.5 million contract through to the end of the Suzuki contract, which makes no sense for Montreal. None whatsoever. So, again, I don't know what your sources are, Cheese Wizard, but I don't see that being a real consideration for the Montreal Canadiens. If you're watching, guys, and you're not yet subscribed to the show or subscribed to the channel, you can do so by hitting the button down below. You can also hit the notification bell, which would be great. And you can also give us a thumbs up if you are enjoying the show and the content. We have 4 thumbs up tonight. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing a shitty job. I don't know, guys. But if you are watching in a replay, you can do the same. That would be great. The interaction is really, really down tonight, guys. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know. I thought that on a Saturday night, Canadiens win. I thought we'd get more people. I thought we'd get more interaction. I thought we'd get more comment. I thought we'd get more likes, all that good stuff. But that doesn't seem to be the case so far. But if you are enjoying the show, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe, all that good stuff. If you're watching in a replay, also, if you enjoy the content, we would certainly ask that you subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Benoit, we might be fine with the team we already have. The thing the Habs are missing is consistency in all aspects, but you might not agree. I agree completely, Benoit. The only thing I disagree with is the word might. The Canadiens are fine with the team they have. And that's the whole idea behind a rebuild, right? You build from within. You build from within your organization. You show preference towards your own players. That doesn't mean you never go out and make any moves. Sometimes you go and make moves when they're necessary. But the Canadiens are not looking to build a team out of players that they bring in from elsewhere. They're not looking to make trades. They're not looking to sign free agents. Certainly not in the short term. Maybe as finishing touches on a contending team. But, that's the whole idea behind a rebuild, is that you focus on the draft and you focus on your own assets to build your team. And so, going out and getting Patrick Laine was, a bit of a stretch, perhaps, in some ways. But again, his age certainly fell within the parameters of the rebuild. The fact that they essentially got him for nothing. They essentially got him. They got a draft pick in order to take his contract off the Columbus Blue Jackets' hands. The Carrier trade, again, other people, some people would indicate that might have been a departure from the rebuild. But again, a younger player, a guy who certainly didn't break the bank. They were able to get him quite cheaply and, made a difference in the lineup beyond just his own contributions. He made a difference in that he allowed other players to slide into, more appropriate and more conducive roles. So I don't see the Canadiens looking to go out and make, quote unquote, a big splash as far as trades at the deadline or as far as UFA signings in the offseason are concerned. It's just not their intention. I know there was talk about Marchessault, but again, if Marchessault was going to come here, it was going to be on a very short-term contract where, he signed for, 2 years at the most because of his age and so on and so forth. So now that they've moved further along in the rebuild, I don't see them really being that interested in any players that are sort of beyond 26 or 27 years old. So I think you make a great point, Benoit, when you say we might be fine with the team we already have. I think we are fine with the team we already have, or they are already fine with the team they already have, right? They're, the players that are on this team right now, if they develop and continue to improve, they will be more than enough for this team to be competitive and to be contenders, especially when you supplement them with the prospects that are on their way, right? So if, Slafkovsky, Caulfield, and Suzuki are the players that they have shown that they are capable of being, then that's going to be great. Maybe there's some question marks for some people about Kirby Dach. Okay. I think that Kirby Dach has the capacity and the ability to be a really good player in the NHL, and I think he will be. the question I guess becomes whether or not he can put it together in time for him to be able to stay with Montreal or not. I think he will, but a lot of people don't think he will, but that's fine. If he does, then you're looking at him being on a second line with Patrick Laine and maybe a Demidov or a Michael Hage, some young player that still has to develop and improve and get better. Then on your third line, you're looking at guys like Newhook, you're looking at Joshua Roy, you're looking at guys like Oliver Kapanen, you're looking at guys like there's all kinds of guys in that role. Gallagher and Anderson are going to be around for a little while longer, I think. And then on the fourth line, you're looking at maybe Jake Evans sticks around. If he doesn't, then you're looking at Owen Beck. You're looking at Florian Jacki. You're looking at Luke Tuck. You're looking at Tyler Thorpe. You're looking at guys like that. So again, these are all examples of people that are currently within the organization. On the defense, you're looking at Gooley. You're looking at Hudson. You're looking at Jacki. You're looking at Mayu, you're looking at Reinbacher, you're looking at Engstrom, you're looking at Jaden Struble, you're looking at Bogdan Kanyushkov, you're looking at these are guys that are within the organization, and then of course you make a decision whether do you keep a guy like Mike Matheson, do you keep Alex Carrier? How long does he figure into the conversation? All of these things, but again, if those players or if enough of those players develop into what they look like they're going to develop into, then yes, you're right. You do have the right players in the organization. What's up, Intertap? Just got in from watching the game with some buddies. What a great show by the team and especially Slavkovsky. Yes, I agree. We talked about that earlier. I thought Slavkovsky had a great game. I thought the team had a great game. I thought they showed a ton of urgency. I thought they were moving their feet. I thought they were skating. I thought they were hitting. I thought they looked good in their own end. They were creating turnovers in their own end. The neutral zone, maybe not so much as not so much as we would have seen, sort of in that I don't know what we're going to call that period between sort of Christmas time and the latter part of January, the golden era, maybe we'll call it. That sort of 15, 16 game period where they were playing their best hockey. I don't know that maybe the neutral zone in the transition game was at that level, but again, I thought the defensive zone coverage was fantastic, and the pressure in the offensive zone was great, right? The forechecking, creating turnovers, and 2 or 3 of their goals tonight were scored by creating pressure in the defensive zone or in the offensive zone and making Ottawa make mistakes. Coach brought up a great point on his show about Heineman. Apart from what he brings himself, with him back in the lineup, the lines are back to being balanced. Yeah, and that's been a big part of this team, right? And again, I think there's a positive side of the coin and a negative side of the coin on that, Billy D. I think the positive coin is, the positive aspect is exactly what you've brought up, is this idea that when everybody's in the lineup, there's a balance there where, all 4 lines, are, sort of where they need to be and playing well. The negative is that, there's a lack of depth, right? So if one of those players goes out, then all of a sudden that, that balance is thrown into a tailspin a little bit, right? So again, I think the positive is that you're absolutely right. When everybody's healthy and everybody's in the lineup, a guy like Heineman, balances things off. It's very similar to the way that when Alex Carrier came in, he brought a level of balance to the defensive core, in that he allowed Gooley to move back to the left-hand side. He allowed everybody to slide into their most appropriate chairs, as to use Marty St. Louis terminology. But the negative side of that is that when one guy goes out of the lineup, the Canadiens at this stage in their development process, in the stage of their rebuild, don't have the depth to bring the right guy in, right? Like we saw when Heineman first went down, we saw the Canadiens there. Marty St. Louis wanted to basically just slide Michael Pezzetta into Heineman's role and create as little, as few waves or as little change within the rest of the lineup as he possibly could, right? He didn't want to mess with the first line. He didn't want to mess with the second line. He didn't want to mess with the third line. And, he just wanted Pezzetta to slide into that role and take over Heineman's spot. And it didn't work, right? Because Pezzetta had been in the press box as long as he had been, and because Pezzetta just isn't, Emil Heineman, he wasn't able to do that. And then all of a sudden, you had to like double shift some guys down on the fourth line to make up for that, because Pezzetta was only putting in 5 or 6 minutes a game. And then they brought up Owen Beck to try and do that. And, at first he didn't really do it that well, and then he was able to do it a little bit better. So again, it just sort of threw the entire balance of the roster out of whack. But so again, I mean, if Coach made that point, I wasn't watching the show, then I think that's a great point. And you're smart to bring it up here, Billy D. But yeah, it's a great point. It's the same thing. Like I said, it's the same thing that Carrier did with the defensive core, and then of course Gouli going down kind of threw that all into the spin cycle a little bit too. Maybe they did a good job of showing Slav videos of Brady Tkachuk. Well, again, I think that Slav probably was watching the Four Nations face-off pretty closely and probably had a front row seat to Brady Tkachuk. But again, I suspect that somebody on the team put that idea in his head that his game might benefit from having a little bit of Brady Tkachuk inserted into it. And tonight he certainly took that to heart. I don't think he can be a Brady Tkachuk, sort of in every aspect of his play. I don't think he has that. I don't think he has the same characteristics that Brady Tkachuk has, but I think as far as the physical aspect of the game, I think, the hitting, maybe not the fighting necessarily, but the hitting part of the game, I think he certainly can adopt that aspect of it. Entertap, that's what we were saying earlier, definitely edge to his game tonight. Yeah, again, he led the team in hits. I think he had 8 hits, which was significantly more than anybody else on the team. Again, I don't think that he's going to be the same player as Tkachuk as far as a guy who anybody really worries about having to fight. But it's nice to see. It was nice to see tonight that he was, able and willing to stand up for himself against a guy who, again, Ridley Gregg's not the toughest guy in the league, but he's also not a pushover either. He got up from a big hit, stood up for himself, and had a really good game. Again, arguably his best game of the year. So, 1 assist away from a Gordie Howe hat trick. So we'll see. We'll see if he can carry that same attitude. Again, I think it's nice to know that he now has sort of a reference point, if that makes sense, right? He has a reference point for what that game looks like and what that game feels like, so that in the future he can go back to that reference point and say to himself, am I being am I playing the way I did in that game against Ottawa back in February, or am I being as physical? Am I being as involved? Am I moving my feet the way I did in that game? Like, it's interesting. It's like we talked about it after the Canadiens went on that that positive run in January. That they now have a reference point of what it feels like to play, the game the way they're meant to play it, and that they can now refer back to something and have a sense of what what it feels like to play the way they need to play when they're at their best. Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Anderson, Suzuki. So close, Entertap. You're always 3 out of 4. We've already done the A-team, Entertap. We've already done it, but I'll put it up for you again if you want. You're 3 of 4. Actually, you know what's going to happen when we do this? We're going to have to listen to the Russian. We're going to have to listen to the Russian background.
Сам броском с чистого льда. Вход в зону. Иван Демидов. И затем передача повтором на короткого.
I have Arbor Jack guy
Разворачивает корпус, передача и Выкатывался Котляревский, но
I thought that guy had a really good game in our tap.
идеальное попадание нападающего СКА.
Suzuki obviously
3 гола
deserves to be
подряд.
there.
Все в большинстве
However, I
забивает
just,
Санкт-Петербург.
I wasn't about to put the entire first line all on the A team. I kept Suzuki off. Could I have put him there? But I thought that Jack Guy deserved recognition for what he brought. I thought he had a really good game. He was one of the better players on the ice for Montreal tonight, in my opinion, my humble opinion. He had the second best expected goals percentage on the team. So, I thought he played really well. Yeah, I think he knows. I think he knows Billy D. I think he knows what kind of player he wants to be and what player he's going to be. The question is, what does he have to do to be that player, right? He's a guy who's had a ton of success in his career at various levels. He was the MVP at the... Was it the MVP at the Olympics or was it the MVP at the World Championships? He was the MVP somewhere as like an 18-year-old, right? And so he kind of knows what his game is. But again, the things that he was able to do at a younger age and at lower levels, in order to be able to do those things, he needs to, adapt his game a little bit, right? He's not going to just go out there and yes, Galley also deserves it. Enter tap. I would agree with you on that as well. He's not just going to go out and physically dominate the NHL, despite his size, all of it, while he would have been the biggest, strongest player when he was 18 years old playing against other 18 and 17-year-olds, he's not going to be that in the NHL, right? He's going to have guys who are as big and as strong as he is. There's guys who are not going to be intimidated by his size. There's guys who are not going to be afraid to go into physical contact with him. So, he needs to take that on, right? And there's all kinds of aspects to that. It's overcoming your own fear, right? Like, you're in the NHL now. There's big, strong, physical guys out there who, when you go out and hit them, they're going to hit you back. And how do you take on that? How do you take that on? Right, and I think one of the things I've seen from Slavkovsky is that he has been a little bit shy and reluctant to get into that game because he doesn't really feel comfortable having to defend himself. Right, and again, it's not about going out there and just throwing your body at people anymore. It's about you can't throw your body at people in the NHL because you can't take yourself out of the play. Like if you go out there and every time you hit somebody, you fall down and you take yourself out of the play, there's no sense in you going out there and hitting people. So again, I think it's a learning process for Slavkovsky, and there's a lot of things that he needs to do to get to the point where he becomes, as you say, Billy, you say, to become the type of player he will be. I think he knows the type of player that he's going to be or that he wants to be. It's just that he needs to learn how to do the things in order to be that person or to be that player, right? And I think, this whole Brady Tkachuk discussion or Brady Tkachuk scenario is a good one for him because for him, it gives him a reference point, right? It gives him a reference point. This is what I've just watched this guy play 3 or 4 games, and now I've gone out and done it myself, and I know what it looks and feels like, and I'm comfortable with it because, I went out and did it, and nobody beat the shit out of me, and nobody, took advantage of me, and I was able to stand up for myself. What's up, Keith Graham? I was able to stand up for myself when I needed to. In that sense, I think, now he has something that he can work on and he can work with or he can build upon. So, it'll be interesting to see. Well, what the hell is that? That's not ideal. it'll be interesting to see whether he can carry that over from game to game to game. You know, much like we talked about when the Canadiens were struggling in October and November and even into December. Stand by. We talked about whether or not, you know, when they had a good game, we talked about whether they could carry that over to the next game, and then the game after that, and the game after that, and that this team would be making strides in the right direction when they could do, or when they could perform at their highest level for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row, as opposed to one good game, one bad game, one good game, one bad game, 2 good games, 2 bad games. You know, the team would be better when they could do it game after game after game after game after game, which is what they did for that period between Christmas time and the end of January, right? They did it game after game after game after game, and now they've kind of slid back into this sort of more inconsistent performance where they're, you know, good game, bad game. I disagree with Slav. My gut says he is not allowed to become who he is as a player. I feel like he tries to play to please the organization. He is yet to be greenlit. What do you mean by that, Tony B? What is it that you think he's not being allowed to do on the ice? I think I don't agree. I mean, I guess I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. What I think you mean, I don't agree with. I think the organization understands very much what Slavkovsky's capable of being, but they also need him to be responsible. They also need him to, you know, to play both ends of the ice. They need him to be a good defensive player and a good offensive player. But I do think they understand that, you know, there's a physical component to his game, right? When they drafted him, they didn't draft him specifically because of his offensive talent. They drafted him because he's a quote-unquote unicorn, in that, you know, he's big, strong, physical, and has, you know, a ton, you know, he's not Berkeley Catton, right? He's Beckett Seneca, right? He's got offensive upside, but he's also 6'5" and, you know, 225 pounds, right? That doesn't come along every day. You know, there's a lot of really good offensive hockey players out there in the world, but not many of them are, you know, big, strong power forwards like that. So what makes him great is not necessarily his offensive talent. It's his offensive talent combined with his size. And so for him to be a guy who, you know, even if he puts up 50 or 60 or 70 points, but is a guy who doesn't really get involved physically or use his size, then he's just another 50 or 60 point guy. But if he's a guy who's, you know, getting 50 or 60 points, but also goes out there and is, you know, physically, I don't want to say dominating, because that's maybe not the right word, but physically involved and has a physical component to his game, then that makes him different than a lot of the other guys out there, right? Like, there's a lot of 60 or 70 point guys in the NHL, but there's not a lot of 60 or 70 point guys out there in the NHL who go out there and hit and are physical and use their size and get involved in front of the net and, you know, do that kind of stuff. And so I think for them, for Montreal, I think that's what they envision for him. But like with most of their young players, the message that they're trying to send to those young players is that, yes, we understand the kind of player you are, but you also have to fit within the team structure, and you have to be responsible defensively, and you have to be able to and willing to play within the structure and the systems that this team has in place. Because, you know, at the end of the day, the way this team is going to win is not by having a bunch of great individual players. It's going to be by having, you know, a bunch of players that are all working together and, you know, to use Kent Hughes' words, pulling in the same direction, and you know, working within a system. So Anyways, gangs, I think that's going to be just about it for tonight. Again, a little bit disappointed in the turnout tonight. Those of you who were here, again, I'm not disappointed in you, obviously. It's great that you guys have come out and that you've posed your questions. I'm talking about you, Tony B, Billy D, Entertap, Jason Teal, Benoit had some great questions as well. Zachary was here earlier. So a small turnout. Those who did turn out, it was great. I appreciate the conversation. But again, bonjour Marc-Antoine. Est-ce que tu resignerais l'année? Probablement oui, pour moi, Marc-Antoine. Mais on ne doit pas prendre cette décision maintenant. Il y a encore une année après cette année de faire cette décision. Alors, il y a beaucoup de choses qui va arriver avant qu'on doit faire cette décision. Alors, pour moi, la décision va être faite après l'an prochain. Alors, il y a beaucoup de choses qui pourraient arriver avant que cette décision doit être faite. Alors, en ce moment, ici, pour moi, je pense que Patrick Laine était un bon joueur pour Montréal. Il a eu des hauts et des bas. Quand il joue à son meilleur, c'est un joueur que je pense que il peut contribuer à cette équipe. Mais quand il joue à son moins, his worst, c'est un problème. Mais je pense que il aime jouer ici. Je pense que c'est un joueur qui est comment on dit committed? Commis. Il est commis à cette équipe d'être un force qui contribue à cette équipe. Alors, c'est une force positive pour cette équipe. Les autres joueurs l'aiment. Alors, pour moi, c'est un joueur maintenant que j'aimerais avoir avec l'équipe. Mais je considère que il y a beaucoup de choses qui pourraient arriver avant la fin de l'an prochain, qui pourraient changer cette décision. Alors, à mon avis, en ce moment-là, je dirais oui, que je resignerais l'année, mais je concède aussi que on ne doit pas faire cette décision avant l'an prochain. Again, the question is whether or not I would re-sign Laine. And what I, just said, relatively poorly in French is that, that decision doesn't need to be made until next year. And for me, obviously there's a lot that will happen between now and when that decision needs to be made. If I had to decide today, I think I would say yes to re-signing him. Again, obviously the dollars and cents would matter. But again, I think he's been a positive force for this team. He's had his ups and his downs. When he's at his best, I think he's a major contributing force to this team. I think he's demonstrated to me enough that he wants to be a positive contributor to the team. He's well liked by his teammates. They seem to like him. He brings a level of leadership to the team from what I've seen. And again, obviously there's mental health issues involved, and there's all But again, I think that those are things that, because they're now out in the open, are things that can be worked with, right? So when he does struggle, it's not a matter of, oh, you're struggling, you're on the bench, or oh, you're struggling, you're in the press box. It's okay, let's work on this, right? Let's work on how do we make you feel better, and again, I think Marty St. Louis is the right coach for that. So, at the end of the day, I think for moi, la décision ne doit pas être faite avant l'an prochain. The decision doesn't need to be made until next year. So let's wait and see what happens between now and then. Alors, on va attendre à l'an prochain pour voir qu'est-ce qui se passe avant qu'on doit faire la décision de signer ou de ne pas signer Patrick Laine. And if we do sign him, what does the money amount look like? Is he a 50-goal scorer? Or do we have to fork out 10, 12, 13 million dollars to keep him? Est-ce que c'est un joueur de 50 buts ou est-ce qu'on doit donner 12 ou 13 millions de dollars pour le garder ici à Montréal? Ou est-ce que c'est un joueur qui aime jouer ici, qui veut rester ici, même si ça veut dire qu'il va prendre moins de l'argent pour aller quelque part d'autre? Is he willing to take less money to stay here in Montreal than to go somewhere else? Like, has Montreal made it enjoyable enough for him? Has he enjoyed his time here enough that he is willing to stay, and sort of, sacrifice, another contract somewhere else? Like, is he willing to stay in a place like Montreal, which might be better for his mental health, where people understand him and what he's all about, than go to New York City and make another $1 million a year, but perhaps have to go through some of the stuff that he went through early in his career because they maybe don't get him the way that Montreal does. So that's a great question. That's a great question, Marc-Antoine. Merci beaucoup. C'est une excellente question. Si vous n'êtes pas encore souscrit, vous pouvez faire ça. Le bouton, c'est en bas ici pour souscrire. If you're not subscribed, guys, feel free to do so below. We're going to end the show here shortly. We've been on for about an hour and a half now, maybe a little bit longer. So yeah, if you're not subscribed, guys, certainly do so. We're trying to grow the family. We're trying to grow the community. We're trying to give you guys a place where we can all sit and have civil, intelligent conversations about our favorite team and the sport of hockey. The more people we have, the better. Obviously, 500 is a magic number when it comes to YouTube. There's a lot more I can do, you can do, we can do if we get to 500 subscribers. We're working our way there. Pas de problème, Marc-Antoine. C'est ma plaisir. Mon plaisir? Ma plaisir. Mon plaisir. Mon plaisir, I think. It was my pleasure, Marc-Antoine. I always appreciate the opportunity to answer in French. J'apprécie toujours l'opportunité de répondre en français. Was Demidov credited with an assist today? He was. Last I checked, Entertap. Last I checked, he was. I haven't checked lately, but as of the end of the game, he was credited with an assist. He was on the third line. We talked about this earlier briefly. He was on the third line with two very offensively challenged players today. I'm not sure what the rationale for Roman Rottenberg was for doing that. Some have speculated that it had something to do with his latest rebuffing of contract offers from SKA. But he was on a line with two players, one who had 3 points for the entire season so far, and the other, I believe, had 14. And between the two of them, I think one guy was minus 12 and the other guy was a minus 4. So again, he was put on a line, on the third line. His ice time was a little bit limited compared to what we've been seeing of late. And he, what's up, elite prospects? Hockey? Well, can't even talk. Yeah, it was a bit of a tough situation that Rottenberg put Demidov in today. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that Demidov shone because of it. I'm not going to say that he had a great game. But again, I thought, under the circumstances, registering a point, he got he assisted on one of his line mates' first goal of the season. And, certainly made that guy better. But it was tough. It was a tough situation that he was put. He was definitely not put in a situation to succeed. Is he allowed to make mistakes a la Hudson? Yeah, I think the attitude in SCA is very different than the one in Montreal. I think Marty St. Louis is a better coach than Roman Rottenberg, to say the least. I also think that his philosophy and his attitude towards his players is very different. Again, I think that's a reflection of the fact that Roman Rottenberg isn't a really experienced coach and doesn't really understand hockey the way Marty St. Louis does. I think Marty St. Louis understands that young players are going to make mistakes and that you don't want to handcuff them and make them scared to make mistakes, and that you want to give them opportunities even if they do make mistakes. Rottenberg, I think, is just so like a deer in the headlights, kind of, in that he's always looking for the obvious thing, right? So if he has a player who made a mistake on the ice, it's easy for him to say, "Oh, I got to get that guy off the ice," or "I got to do something to fix that," as opposed to understanding that maybe putting that kid right back on the ice because he's your best player might be to your team's benefit. And I don't think he quite gets all that. So to answer your question, Tony B, no, he's not allowed to make mistakes a la Hudson. All right, gang, that's it for tonight. We're going to end it right there. Montreal Canadiens 5, Ottawa Senators 2. Really good performance by the Canadiens coming out of the break. They faced a what's the right word? Short-handed, I guess, Ottawa Senators team. But again, I don't think that that's takes anything away from the victory. I thought they played really good hockey. They were really good in their own zone. They were really good on the forecheck. They created turnovers. They capitalized on their turnovers, and they were, despite some of the advanced statistics, they were significantly the better team tonight. They looked really, really good against a team that they're in direct competition with as far as their conference and their division and the wild card is concerned, whether it's this year, next year, or the year after that. So again, 5-2 Montreal. They go again on Tuesday against the... Who is it on Tuesday? I know on Thursday they've got the San Jose Sharks, but I'm not sure who it is on Tuesday. One of you will chirp in on the comments and let me know. I'm just drawing a blank on who that is. Carolina. It's Carolina. So Carolina on Tuesday, San Jose on Thursday, and then next Saturday they play again. So we will be live after each one of those games, guys. We will go on the air about 10 minutes after the game ends on Tuesday, Thursday, and then on Saturday again. It's been a pleasure, guys, as always. The turnout wasn't great tonight. The people who were here were awesome, but the numbers were down a little bit. But I do appreciate all of you. If you are not yet subscribed, then I certainly ask you to do so. I also certainly ask you to check out our show. Like I said, we go live after every Canadiens game. We also do a show called Habs Therapy Day every Wednesday evening. Habs Therapy Day, Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Nova Scotia time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, any of those places, not in Atlantic Canada, the show starts at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays, Habs Therapy Day. We do talk about some of the topics and issues facing the Montreal Canadiens. And it's a good, fun time. And all of it is interactive, guys. We always certainly welcome you guys to come and join the show. Whether it's Habs After Dark or Habs Therapy Day, we invite you to come and get in the comments and ask your questions. That's really what makes the show fun and exciting for me, is being able to talk to all of you and to have, like I said, civil, intelligent, rational, objective conversations about the Montreal Canadiens without having to deal with the trolls and some of the baloney that goes on some of the other platforms and on the internet generally. So that's it tonight, guys. Thank you, Intertap. Thank you, Billy D. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Marc-Antoine. That's it for tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. If there's more of it left for you, for me, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, so the evening's pretty much over. I will probably watch the end of this Vancouver Las Vegas game. But beyond that, I'm done for the night. I do appreciate everybody for coming. If you are watching in a replay, I appreciate you for doing that as well. You guys are great. And if you do want to subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up. That's awesome too. Wiggs, you're new. Welcome. We're ending the show here, but I will answer your question. Slaffy played like a true power forward tonight. It was fun to watch. Absolutely. We talked about that earlier in the show, Wiggs. Maybe his best game of the year. He's certainly taken to heart this, whole idea of playing more like the Brady Tkachuk and inserting a bit of a Brady Tkachuk component into his game. But you're right. It was a great game for him. Hopefully, it's him recognizing an identity that will help him be the best he can be in the NHL. And I look forward to seeing whether he can carry that over to, the next game on Tuesday and the game after that and the game after that. Maybe this is a turning point for him. Let's hope. Let's hope so, because I think the kid has a ton of potential. He has a ton of talent. He's a good hockey player. And right now, I think he's just working to find his identity and to find what it is that will make him the best he's capable of being in the NHL. So that's a great comment, Wiggs. I do appreciate it. Unfortunately, like I said, we're not sticking around. The show's over. We've been live for almost 2 hours here now. But I certainly do invite you to come and subscribe and join us next time. We do go live after every Canadiens game. Habs After Dark. So thank you very much, Wiggs, for popping by. Thank you, everybody else. Again, 5-2 Habs over the Ottawa Senators. First game back after the break was fun to watch, an exciting game, and certainly a step in the right direction for the Montreal Canadiens. So all that said, guys, I do appreciate everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you in the next one. Peace out.
Hoffman, Monahan parked in front. Dr. Caulfield fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.